Learning how is how we know. Learning how is how we grow. Then how is how we sow the seeds in our head to move us ahead. Not learning how to be man or woman, but learning how to be fully human.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Learning How to Be Fully Human, where we're unlearning who the world told us to be and become who we truly are. My name is Nkenge, and I'm the co-creator of this podcast and creator of Parenting Doesn't Come with a Book and founder of Learning How Child Development Center.
And I'm King. I'm the architect of the Fully Human movement, and I'm a fully human individual who is committed to being generative, living the law of service, and building with those who want to build on that level. So great to be here.
Great to be here as well. So, King, I know we always start our meetings when we're offline with our gratitude. So I'll let you get started with your gratitude and I'll follow up.
Well, I'm grateful for my life, my health, my ability to see, hear, walk, talk, stand, breathe, have a sound mind. I'm grateful for another 24 hours to pursue my purpose in life. Grateful for my problems, because through those problems, I see those as opportunities to grow. I'm grateful for the ability to have technology and build and be in a level of state of gratitude. So that's my gratitude.
Thank you for sharing. I concur all the same things. I would add that I'm extremely grateful for this fully human 180-day journey, as it's just completely unlocking so many things inside of me. And I'm just learning so much. And the universe is just availing itself to me in so many ways that I'm just extremely grateful. Which takes me into my first question for you, King, for today. I just want to make sure that I know we know what fully human means. I know your listening audience, but I want to make sure my parents and my stakeholders understand what fully human truly is. So when you say feel fully human, what actually do you mean? Not as a concept, but as lived experience.
Well, when I say fully human, it means a lot and it means a little all at the same time. Now, from what I've learned, I'm not the originator of the term fully human. Others have used that term quite a bit in its normal nomenclature as far as in human language. People use the term. I've come up with my definition of it so that I can understand how to live it and how to adhere to what I believe are 6 pillars of being fully human. And that's where people who are fully human, if you live in these 6 pillars, and that's what you are doing. And pillar number 1 is your identity. The identity is identified as fully human first and foremost. Not your race, not your gender, not your sexual orientation, not your country, not your religion, your trauma, or anything that the construct has used as divisive tactics to divide us. We are all energy sources. And so as that, those are descriptions of you, but they're not your identity. Number 2 is having a growth mindset and being able to learn that you don't know everything today, that you got to constantly be on the path of learning more. And that's what you challenge yourself to do, is learn more every single day. Number 3 is having a higher purpose and serving beyond just your own ego and your own thoughts. Is what can you do for the world and how to make the world a better place? And as you do that, you have a grateful spirit in that activity. In that process, you are grateful for being alive. It's, you and I just went through our gratitude moment. That sets your state so that now once you're in a state of gratitude, then you adhere to your governing principles, which dictate how you behave your life and how you go about making your choices in life and making sure that you operate the right path. And then finally being self-aware that once you put all those 5 pillars together, what kind of impact is that having in the world and how your actions and behavior is impacting your community, your family, and your entire ecosystem. So that's what I look at as being fully human within my framework.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I made that comment because this journey for me And I love that you created your own definition for it, because I think the work that we do is relative to whatever it is that we're building. So while you have your space that you're building in, the overarching um, goals of it, or like the core of it, is the same for both of us, but it's executed in different ways. Because of the people that our target audience is. So my next question was there a moment, a breaking point, or maybe even a quiet realization where you knew something in your life had shifted?
Yeah, absolutely. And that usually comes from most people, and definitely I'm not immune to that. It comes from the wreckage. Once you reach a point where you go through a thunderstorm, and a thunderstorm could be a health crisis, could be a financial crisis, it could be a relationship crisis, it could just be a mental crisis, but it's something that is a spiraling of despair that happens all at once. And you have to get to the point where you have to make a decision. Either you're going to change or you're going to die. When it gets to that point, that they call rock bottom. And that's when you are forced to make a change in that context. And choosing the change to be for the better is a much more difficult change to make than choosing, which is the easy path of self destruction, which seems easier at the time, but you know that it's going to have more devastating impact. And plus, it's not a great place to be at. Choosing the path of growth and choosing to say, I'm going to be a better person, and what can I learn from this thunderstorm that I've gone through? And how can I use that to be a better person now going forward and gain that wisdom that Proverbs talks about, where you pay wisdom, get anything. I mean, do anything to get wisdom, pay anything. And so having that kind of a mindset is what helped me make the shift after I've come through the thunderstorm of what my experience was building in Baltimore, and then desiring to still be of value, to be someone who brings value to the world. Having that dual purpose in my life is what put me back on the path. And so it was a wreckage that planted those seeds. I mean, those seeds were planted prior to the wreckage, but the wreckage is what happens, the thunderstorm, and it ignites those seeds. And that's what got me on the path I'm on now, to be fully human. And then realizing that I had put everything into our race. And that's what I want to really get people to really understand, that this is not about a post-racial society. I'm just saying you shouldn't choose race because it's not nice or it's a better way of living. It's just that it's not real. If you look at what quantum physics is, we all are sources of energy. And there is no such thing as race. Race is a made-up description that was first used in the history of the English language in 1675, based off this minister named James Bacon, who led a revolt against the power structure of poor whites and enslaved blacks. And they realized they couldn't have it again. They created race. It was the first time they started using race as a way to be divisive, to make sure that whites and blacks didn't come together. And they put it in that hierarchical context. At the end of the day, we're all energy sources. And that's what I mean by being fully human as well, and recognizing that. But building with people who also understand and see that as well. And finally, I just want to end on this long answer by saying, and it's not so much about trying to convince people one way or the other. It's just you do your training, you learn yourself. That's where the growth mindset comes into play. Not just believing what I'm telling you. It's just you study quantum physics yourself, and you understand that, as Albert Einstein said, energy is everything and everything is energy. Then you realize that that is the case, and there's no arguing around it. And then believing, choosing to believe in race, the question becomes, how is that working for you?
Thank you. Thank you. I love that you answered it that way. I don't think that there was a short answer to that. I'm sure that you could go on far beyond that, but thank you for sharing that. I asked that because this journey for me, I realized, was not about becoming something new. It was like just unlearning some things and becoming more of who I really am, right? I realized that even with children and working with children, how pure they are, how many things that they have instilled in them already are far beyond what they're things that we could adopt and learn from them. And it's because I realize how much the construct has not affected them yet, right? They have not learned all of the things that we are unlearning. So, and more recently, it's been about having the courage to be honest about where I am in real time. Like as a mother, a woman, a builder, even on days that you're exhausted, my children still need me. And so it was it was in a moment of this process that helped this journey that helped me to appreciate that it's okay to pause and be tired, right? Like that's something I need to teach them, right? Me showing them the strength that I have all the time is not realistic, but understanding that humans get exhausted too. We're not machines, and conveying that. And I'll go into that a little more later in our discussion. But it was that real one of the many realizations that I've had on this journey of the importance of being fully human and unlearning those things and knowing that I'm not going to be perfect, but I will be aligned.
Absolutely. And and I want to speak more on the whole fully human ideology. Like I said, the guy who introduced me to that concept was a gentleman who I host another podcast with. And in his teachings, he says there is no definition of being fully human. It's just that you're a human being and it encompasses all that. And that's fine for him. I look at it, for me, everything is about emergence. And how can I grow to be a better person? I couldn't grow to be a better person with that definition. So I had to look at, well, how can I use it as a way of growth? And that's where the pillars came to me as a way of measuring me in the context and who I want to build within that mindset. And then we add that to the 180-day journey now becomes, I undertook that journey myself, and I'm on 127 days of my 180-day journey, is that I wanted to raise my vibrational energy up from what I believe, based on Dr. David Hawkins' map of consciousness scale, and he gives a percentage of thought, measuring where your thought is in a vibrational scale, and thoughts of greed and selfishness and envy are low vibrational thoughts, where love energy is 500 hertz. And the goal for me was, how can I get to 500 hertz energy and increase my energy vibration? Because I believe that's what love is. And that's where co-creation exists with the universe. So the goal was to get to that on a 108-day journey. And along this journey, what I've learned, even though I had that as my intent, and also I had at that time, I wanted to use my framework to generate $1 million. I believe I can build a network and raise $1 million. That's why I started off with that thought process on day one. By the time I got to day 40, I was already thinking differently, that it wasn't about the money. It was bigger than that. It was about who I was. You said not about becoming, but who I was becoming as a result of really, because what I looked at doing was, number one, was reprogramming my mind and understanding that the construct is constantly sending us signals on a daily basis to program our minds to always be in a feeling of lack. They were always needing something, and that's something that was instilling us as we were babies. And that's why, if you really want to go even deeper, you look at the teaching in the Bible, and Jesus referred to, if you want to go get into heaven, become like a child, because children are pure love energy. They come into this earth as pure love energy, and they're taught and programmed through the constructs programming, through their parents' cultural givings and society, and the now social media, everyday programming their minds that their happiness and everything is external to them. That if you're looking for joy, that's external to you. Happiness is getting sugar and getting that dopamine high, or telling your parents what toys you want. That's what happiness lives out there. And the more you believe that, then the more you put you in a constant state of lacking. And that lacking continues to grow through your whole life. And you, as an adult, constantly chasing material things, houses, cars, never really having enough money. If you got $1 million, you need $2 million. If you got $5 million, you need $10 million. And that's what everybody's on, that in a constant state of lacking. And if you've been that way, that's a constant drainage on who you are as an individual, as your creativity. And when you go on a 180-day journey, you're releasing that desire to go out here and extract from people through sales and through, I just got to make money and build on myself, to I want to commit to love energy. I want to give. I want to love And then that puts you back in creative liberation. And you've experienced it and I've experienced it, because when you're on that path of creative liberation that you usually hit as you go through this journey, and there's 4 cycles of it, or phases. Phase 1 is the first 60 days is voice. And that's when you rediscovering your voice. And it's usually for people who are after 40 years old that it hits this, that you recognize there's more to the world and your soul has much more room than what you've learned to carry thus far. And the parents, the kids that you've got, they're in college, you achieved the career, you've made the money, you've married, you got the house, but you still yearn for something more. And that's when you start to realize there's something more to life. It has to be. And the 180-day journey helps you start to find what that is. And when you find your voice in that first 60 days, the voice without the constructs programming of race voice, where you're dealing with, I'm a black man, or I'm a black woman, or I'm a woman in general, or I'm a gay man, or any of that. You just a human being with creative spirit, and how can you love better? And then the next phase you move into after the voice is rhythm. You start getting into your rhythm and you start writing. And Substack is a great way of releasing that creative energy that you have, because you see everything's a Substack article. And you've experienced that. I've experienced that. And you're in that phase for about 60 days as well. And then you move into cadence, which is the third phase. And cadence is what I call a dance with the universe. And that's what universe are really beginning to understand through the rhythm of writing on a regular basis, that there's something more to write about deeper, and your soul connects with that energy, and you start writing from your soul now, as opposed to just writing from a creative space. And then finally, that leads you into phase 4, which is flow. And flow is when you truly become what I believe co-creation with the universe, God, Allah, whatever term you want to refer to as that love energy being that we are connected to. And that's the 108-day journey, long answer again, that puts you in a place to connect to that creative liberation, that you can now start to achieve greater things that you discover yourself to be. And that you bear witness to that as well.
Absolutely, I appreciate that. I'm going to need you to update my workbook. It sounds like you're learning some things that you might have some amendments or edits that you'll add to the workbook as you continue to go along. But so, from your perspective, what does it mean to support children and families from someone who isn't a parent, but still deeply connected to humanity? Like, what does it? What does supporting children and community look like to you?
Well, see, I'm going to say everything that my answers come to the perspective of a systems architect. That's how I view the world in systems. I view the world in framework. So all of my answers are always going to come from that perspective. Then understanding that human body is a system. It's made of organs, but it actually has a system. It has an intelligence. And we operate our lives through systems. Educational system, the legal criminal justice system, the political system, the industrial complex, the political system, all these are systems, healthcare systems. So once you understand that, then my answer now within that, the family system, the dynamic, and having, when you decide to have a man and woman come together and they co-create life to produce one from that, then that's going to be bringing love essence into the world, coming from the creative energy. Because energy, when you understand energy is everything, energy has always existed, and it just comes in different forms. And when we come into our skin suits, and that's what I mean when I talk about being fully human. When you really understand that, that's what you really understand. This is really a skin suit. It's a flavor. It's no different than, as Bob Marley talked about, well, quoting Haile Selassie's version in the song War, that we're going to have war until the color of a man's skin is no more significance than the color of his eyes, right? He was given that wisdom back then, and it's still the same thing. Until we let that go, that creates a freedom of creative liberation. And children don't come into the world thinking race. They come in the world thinking love. They're taught, okay, now you're a black child, you're a black girl, and this is what the world, they have to understand how the world's going to see you. Then they have to deal with that reality, but they come in as pure love. And what I see as a way of dealing with that early in childhood encounters is allowing the children to come into the world and still be loved. Don't give them those categories. again, these are descriptions of us, yes, but they're not the identity that they should see the world through. So it's not about not being proud of being a black man. I am. I'm extremely proud. I've been proud more than others as far as being clear on who my ancestral spirits and our history and our culture is, and having that, and that was my identity for 30 years, and it drove my purpose in life until I realized that that was a false narrative that we're taught to believe in this world, that doesn't really exist. And that if you start believing that, like I used to believe, and I was taught that the white man was a devil. I believed that growing up. And then, of course, there was evidence to point that out. And I still believe there's folks out here who would say that's true, that they believe that. But I've been taught and I've seen where that's not the case. You can't make that general statement. I've had white people who've helped me change at every pivotal point of my life. They gave me an opportunity. There was a white person that was there to do that. If I look at my life, the things I've had in my career path, gave me tremendous opportunities where it was just really faith and them just trusting and seeing something in me and being a support and giving love energy to that. And so that showed me that there is no white people are devils. There is no black people are good. There's only energy, and the skin suits that we have dictate where a person's vibrating frequency has been vibrating based on how they allow the construct to control their thoughts. And that's all that really matters. So now, again, long answer, and I apologize. But as it relates to childhood and raising children, if you understand that you're fully human and you embrace that and then teach that to your children, they grow up with much more freedom. They don't grow up with the 50% drainage in their energy of defending their race, their sexuality, their career, and all these things that's not real. They're allowed to be truly who they can truly be. And that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate that long answer because it stirred up some things in me. I'm gonna take a minute to just share a proud moment. So we're away at a conference, and this is just how the universe just continues to keep aligning things. So every time I learn something new about children or how they develop, especially the population that we're serving, I'm always thinking about how can we better serve them. Like, I understand that I understand what you're saying about race and some things that I'm still learning as I go along. I'm on day 46, I think. Um, and working in marginalized communities, I realize there are realistic things that are happening in real time, right? Trauma, all different kinds of experiences that the children are having that they come to the space with every day. And so um, yesterday I've learned a lot about brain development and conscious discipline and really understanding the way that children work. And so yesterday my teachers well, I had them sign up for this course to really understand the different parts of the brain that's being affected by yelling, the different parts of the brain that's being affected by this, right? Like all of this research-based evidence that show what's happening for these children and how their behavior is just a form of communication. So when you have a child that's acting out or biting or that it's like a cry for help, right? In some kind of way. It's something they're experiencing at home. Well, what that took me into is segued into we realized that there's tons of research, and this might be like on a tangent, but I just gotta say it in this space. Um, we realized in this time that the the research has been done, right? There's plenty of research to say what the children need, in what what's being affected, right? And so my Substack article today, as you talked about earlier, that it leads you into everything starts becoming a Substack article, right? So my Substack article today is the research is done. We'll take it from here, because I realized that we have enough research to show what's happening to children in these situations, right? But what we don't have enough of is solutions. So that leads me into my next question for you. What do you feel like, um, would add value to marginalized communities coming from a fully human perspective for children that are experiencing severe traumatic experiences, whether it be seeing their mother abused, their parents in and out of jail. What would you propose as most of my work now is going to be focused on solutions now because, like I said, we've captured enough data around how these children get like that. What's the trajectory of their life? If their test scores aren't this by third grade, the likelihood of them going to prison. Like we've captured enough of that. What would you say? Because I feel like my work in being more fully human is through early childhood. I know that early childhood education is my voice. What would you say is a support for those communities, for those families, for those children?
Well, I think everything begins with kind of with the work you're already doing, which is having an understanding of how those communities think and operate and what's their cultural cadence and how to be able to relate to them and what they're familiar with. So it's you're not bringing concepts to them with different energy that they're not vibrating yet. I think that starts with that, and you bring that understanding of being from that community, growing up in that community, running the business in those communities. So I think that's vital and first and foremost. Secondly, it comes down to the intent of the person that's going to be involved as well. Is what is your intent for being involved in a educational system as a teacher? Because some people do it for money. I mean, as far as the child development business, not teaching in general, but it has to be for the love of developing children, of working with young minds. Like their intent, that love for that has to be there first and foremost. And people may think that sounds simple and common sense, but it's not. And we've seen so much corruption and abuse in the child development system because people don't come in with the right intent. And that's why I'm speaking of. That has to be first and fundamental in that part of the development. Then we got to look at education in general. What is it designed to do? It should be designed to help children understand who they are in the context of their purpose in life. That's understanding what their soul energy is. Because that's who we are. That's what never changes. You know, we get caught up and we're taught in our world that again, everything is external and physical, but the physical changes constantly. Every 7 years, you physically go through a physical change where you don't no longer look like you did 7 years prior. And that has been consistent since the time you was from 1 to 6, and then you got to be 7, you look totally different. When you go from 7 to 13, by the time you need to be 15, you look totally different. And you repeat that pattern your whole life. So you can't get caught up in the physical. You got to get caught up in what never changes, which is what your soul is. That's still the essence that is in you. And that's where you want to do the teaching and development, because I believe, and again, I'm not a psychiatrist, or any folks who discipline in the area of children development. I understand it just from the context of system engineering and being a systems architect, that the development of the brain still doesn't change. If you're giving people a purpose and you're instilling that purpose and you're repeating that in the curriculum through love, energy, and through intent, that's what's going to nurture. And now you bring the expertise of you yourself and what you bring with your educational experience and your frameworks and how to communicate, how to convey, and how to vibrate rhythmically with the children to get them to feel love from you. That then takes it to a whole nother level. And that's what I believe is some of the present things that you're doing with learning how in your methodology.
Thank you. Yeah. To that point, I realized that yesterday my Substack article was about a parent in particular who just uh, got a new job, and now that job is able to position her. We've been able to give her, through one of our grants, we've been able to give her $500 a month for the last, I don't know how many months. I don't know, but it's been over 10 months that we've been able to give her $500 a month. And from that, she's been reporting back like but we've been holding her hand, connecting her with financial literacy, doing all kinds of things. But it's been that intentional holding hand process. And I realized that, that as it relates to capacity, building that out, like we can't have that one-on-one relationship with everybody. And so for me, my work has been this week thinking through how can we make sure every parent like her is successful, right? We knew that if we wrapped supports around her, gave her funding, gave her child high quality education, all of that kind of thing, we knew that we would be able to really change or support the trajectory. And then now we're applying for private sector schools for her son. And so we know that those things will contribute to changing the trajectory of his life, her life. And so being more intentional about how do we build capacity around being able to support every family with that intentionality is like the quest that I'm on at this time. So thank you for everything that you've shared so far. Let me see. What was my next question? I didn't have another question. That was really it. I had some like topics that I wanted to touch on. But yeah, this journey for me has been just I feel like I'm outside of my body observing myself every single day now. Like the way that things are connecting, the intentionality around how like it's almost like a filter has been lifted off of my eyes, like a lens has been opened in some way. Um, yeah, tell me more about day 70. What for you?
127.
127.
Yes.
Wow. So are you levitating right now?
Metaphorically, yeah, I am. And I would even say that what the journey really is it's a consistent commitment to being a growth minded for 6 months and committing yourself to the fact that as you commit to being a better person, changing your thoughts, committing to love energy, helping someone else, thinking about someone else, see where they take you. You know, I'm 56 years old. Like I said, I've lived my life, my entire life the other way. So I know what that looks like. I know where that leads. I know how that feels. So I want to try something different for 6 months and see where that takes me. And I see where it takes me now. It takes me to heights I've never experienced. I'm actually utilizing AI to produce music, and I can produce music, and that tapped into a part of me that was creative that has been dormant in me my whole life because the construct told me that what you needed to create music was you had to be a musician. You had to be able to be to write. And if you're not able to write a Grammy, if you're not able to get money from it, then you're not a writer, right? So, and if you don't know how to play musical notes, then you can't produce frequency signals is what I call them. And I can do that now with AI. I can take my writing that I've written in Substack articles now and then change that myself into poetry and then put that with AI and create a sound that I was able to spend 6 weeks pretty much orchestrating what my sound is and what instruments I wanted to make as part of my sound that's consistent with that and how I wanted to bring an orchestra and a choir and all those things I can now take from my creative imagination and utilizing with AI technology and produce a frequency signal that has changed a woman who's had cancer for over 10 years and had never considered getting chemotherapy and had rationalized in her mind that she was never going to do it, heard my song about her and convinced her to want to fight for her life. I've seen it draw people to me that I never would have met just by emails or introductions alone, because the frequency signal and the vibration of that music touched her soul, connected us together. We were able to start building together just on that strength. I've seen that happen. So I've seen these frequency signal by me sharing a gratitude song that was my gratitude prayer that I put to melody utilizing AI and sending it out to different people, how it establishes a relationship just at the beginning. People I've met on LinkedIn and I'm looking to connect and build with. That's what I do is I build connections. But starting the conversation with the gratitude song and they listen to that, how that changes the energy that when they respond to you, they're gonna respond to you back in gratitude as well, especially if they've gone through wreckage at some point in their life. They're really gonna appreciate what gratitude sounds like and feels like. And the beauty of being on a 180-day journey is that I'm telling folks I live in a state of gratitude. So it's just not a feeling that comes and goes with me. It's a feeling that I have every single day. But the only way I can get there every day, not to say I don't have problems and challenges and issues, I do. It's just like everybody else. If you're human, you got challenges in your life. But what I go through a list in the morning when I first wake up and I see the sun, I watch the sun come up, and I go through a list like you and I did earlier, what I'm grateful for. And for me, once I go through that list, I find it impossible to complete that list of my eyesight, my ability to hear, see, stand, breathe, etc., and go through that list and not feel gratitude and be at a 10. Now, if I don't do that list, yeah, if I wake up and listen to the news and the news telling me we have war and there's another body shot down at the harbor and the school system is X and the mayor didn't do this and all these things the current administration is doing, if that's what I'm feeding myself initially, the first thing into my conscious mind as I awake is that information, then I get out in traffic and someone cuts me off, or my children's father or my children's mother or whatever the context is, text me with some, they need money right now. All that now compounds on top of what I fed myself. And now I'm just in reaction mode all day. Now you're getting my shadow element of me all day. And that's where people feel drained at the end of the day because they've been living a shadow element and not their highest true self element.
So I think part of the solution then is helping people to see or be more fully human. Now I know that it's an individual thing that they have to choose to do on their own, but I think that there are so many. Speaking of music, I think that there are so many of our ancestors now that have created melodies that still live within us, right? Be the change you want to see. Like all of the great music. I can't wait to go see Michael Jackson later on today, but all of the great music that say that you have to be the change that you see in the world. Um, is a part of that fully human process. And my teachers the other day shared with me how they watch my daughters interact with the children and how they can engage the room and um, create a space for the children to feel heard and come back together and listen and all as like they watch them. And I know that that's a direct reflection of how my children see me. And so it felt really good to learn that about them because it was like, wow, like you don't even realize what you're teaching until somebody else tells you, it's your norm, right? But love being the culture and being fully human, I realized that, or even on this journey for me, I've realized the more I feed myself good things, and not from a practical standpoint of just reading a book, because I realize a lot of the books that I've read a long time ago. I'm just starting to live them 10 years later, right? It's really easy. I shared with you off camera that it's really easy to say, I believe in the four agreements because logically it makes sense. But actually living the four agreements is a whole nother space, or really being in the now all the time, or all of the great books that I've read, I'm rereading now, but I'm really excited about um, how my actions are being contagious, I'll say. Like my teachers are learning, my children are learning, and I asked what was the solution earlier. I know that that's going to be the start of one of the many solutions.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, the fact that you live your life and make the decisions and choose to make the decisions that you make, which is usually being a person that brings love energy to people, to the community, to your family, and then you extend that beyond that. And that's what makes you, in my mind, my definition is fully human. And within that space, then now deciding that you want to create a business and then help others who are going to get into the child development business, adopt a framework based off the wisdom you've learned through your years of being in this space of how to generate revenue, of how to build strategic alliances, of how to
Mhm.
go about marketing and getting um, the parents to bring their children there, and how to have a total family centered model where
Mhm.
it's not just helping the children, but you also are making value to the family. That you talked about the woman that you've helped get $500 a month and providing her what I consider to be like a cloud of services that helps her, lifts her up. And see, that's where the it's important having people who are from that community be involved and empowering them to be owners of their own businesses because they know how and what other people are dealing with beyond just the fact of the income not being there. And see, that's where most of these nonprofit organizations who just create programs based off data and statistics uh, at this income level, then create their programs based on that without really understanding other dynamics that have to be considered, such as child care services in case the child gets sick. And as you talked about before off camera, and I want you to talk a little bit more here as well, that if the parent is sick, do they have enough sick leave to be able to take off to take care of their children, and how do they handle that? See, you having that caring, adopting that, and then embedding that into your methodology is key with being able to really connect and more importantly help the emergence of the people in your community become better human beings. And as you lift them up and have them become better human beings through love energy, then their children are now going to be recipients of that as well. Because now that just becomes, now that builds that universal rhythmic cyclical pattern that now can be still 7 generations deep. And that's what I love about your model.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because in my Substack article earlier today that I was writing, I'm not finished yet, but I wrote stabilize the family, elevate the parent, and the child will rise naturally, right? Like once you create that system around them, it's just inevitable like that they're going to be great. And I see the genius in so many of my children every single day that I know with the right supports built in around them that they're going to be successful. I wanted to also share another part of my process of being fully human has been just like how ref- I read this a while ago, but I'm actually living it, right? Like how you start mirroring the people when the teacher is ready. I mean, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. I mean, literally in every walk of my life. Um, my morning class is on Saturdays is a network for developing conscious communities, and today the young lady referenced herself as a tax evangelist, and the information that she gave today, it's going to take me at least 6 months to dissect this rich content, right? That I realize is more tools for me to better engage and support my families, right? Like this level of knowledge and the way that she described um, um, the things that people don't know as part of their oppression, right? Like, and how to remain compassionate about giving them the tools and better understanding and building up the confidence in them. And I realize that is such a huge part of this work is removing all of that judgment, removing any biases that you may have, and just really looking at people as fully human. How can I, like, love, how can I support them? And that has been challenging for me at times. You know, when you work in a community where people are as frustrated as they are in the communities that I work in, after you've been lashed out or people use profanity and say all kinds of mean, hurtful things to you, you have to go and process that and then really return to your four agreements not to feel some kind of way. And so I was really grateful for her wisdom this morning in realizing that those behaviors are only temporary, and if we keep on exuding love, it's going to transcend those things. And so that's a part of this journey has made me more patient with with everything that I do.
You know, you're absolutely right. And as you shared it, what I was thinking about, it reminds me of a quote by Viktor Frankl, and he says that when you can no longer change the situation, then the situation can change you. And that's when you begin to realize that there's something you need to learn from this. As you talk about being able to provide more educational programs for your community, and really making sure that you're able to provide the full spectrum of support services, I think is what makes you fully human, and then helping other people understand that as well. That's now becomes what the goals are. Imagine if being fully human was taught as a curriculum, that as a development process, that people will understand that there is growth to this. That's what they teach us in all the um, human emergence is key in all the different sororities or religious rites, sects. Like the Masonic order has 33 degrees that you got to go through based on Jesus being 33 years old and the number of 33 uh, uh, things in your spine, leading up to your crown of your head, and how significant sacred geometry and numbers are into human emergence. But human emergence is a key part of who we are. I mean, religion tries to do that. They put you as a child early on, and you're the altar boy, and you stay in child long enough. You stay in church long enough, you can eventually grow from that to the deacon. It's about emergence. I mean, the whole entire school system is based on teaching you from kindergarten on through to do graduate emergence. But it's now, what is that emergence speaking to? Is this emergence speaking to the mind first, or is it speaking to the soul first? And see, if it's speaking to the soul first, there's a different emergence that's going to happen than speaking just to the mind. Because if it speaks only to the mind, then the mind grows up being strategic, being analytical, and then being manipulative, because it's in their best interest of being narcissistic and tapping into that shadow energy. But if it's taught to the soul first, and we talked about Michael Jackson now, and you talk about going to see his movie, he's an excellent example of how a child can grow up and not be inhibited by anything. So Michael Jackson was able to grow up, even though his childhood was taken from him allowed to be a child and develop. But his imagination of what it looked like to be follow in the footsteps of Jackie Wilson and James Brown and everybody who he admired, he was allowed to live that imagination to the fullest of his ability and have complete support around that and training around that. And now we've created a person that has lived on far after his death. And that's because he was able to fully develop within himself that particular that talent, and that emergence happened in his training for that particular product that he became. But he transcended that because he stayed truthful and youthful, and that's why he's always been and still looked at right now as a beacon of love. And he resonates now even with children who never even knew him live, but just hear his music and automatically feel that rhythm. So that speaks to their soul. That's what I'm getting at when I mean by that.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's man. This is good. This is good. I'm excited about next steps or not next steps, but the next tomorrow. Every day keeps getting better every day, and when I say better, even in the moments that I'm challenged, or again, like you said, I'm not without challenges, but every day, viewing it from this lens has been really helpful for the work that I do for myself, for humanity. Like, it's just beautiful. I haven't gotten to the point of writing songs as much as you have yet, but I've tapped into it just a little bit, and I'm really enjoying it. I can't wait to get through this first 60 days. I'm looking forward to it, not anxiously, but just excited about um, what what will come out of this. Like I said, the universe is just aligning everything in my space. And like again, it's not a void of challenges, but I'm learning how to better navigate those challenges. I'm learning that those challenges are here for me to see something. Am I supposed to pivot? It's almost like a challenge. I would liken it to like a road closure, because there's a pitfall on if I kept going straight. Like I look at those like that now. I'm like, okay, that challenge happened because it's for me to go in another direction, or it's for me to sit still. I've learned a lot of my days have been about me just surrendering and sitting still, and not going beyond or pushing myself beyond a self-care limit.
Well, it reminds me of a quote by Sidney Poitier, which is "Possess your soul of patience." When I heard that quote, I was like, "Wow!" And then it reminds me of, again, going back to the Bible. If you want to use that as a reference, it talks about patience is a virtue, right? So patience and understanding how important that is has always been a key in understanding how you should live your life and how you should grow as an individual within that framework. And I just want to leave people with what I believe to be 8 words. If you say these 8 words every day before you go to sleep, and you do this at least for 30 days, just do this and watch what it does for you. Watch how you start thinking differently. But always say these words only right before you go to bed. That space between before you pass out and still a little bit of consciousness, that's when you want to say it. That's when the subconscious mind is starting to come in to play, and then now it's going to start taking over. So let the last thing that your conscious mind implanted into your subconscious mind be these powerful 8 words. And these 8 words are: number one, you start off, you say love. Number two, you say faith. Number three, you say patience. Number four, you want to have, you want to serve. Number five, you want to make sure that you are generative in it. Number six, you want to have gratitude while you're doing that. Number seven, you want to make sure that you're doing that with the intentionality of love energy. And then number eight is oneness with the universe. And if you're doing these and you're saying these words, and I'm sorry, I forgot one of the words, is forgiveness. That's the word I've left off. So forgiveness. And if you're saying these words every single night before you go to bed for 30 days, that's going to do something to you. That's going to change the way you start thinking about things by day 31. And that's why I give that to people as a suggestion and as a takeaway.
I love it. I'll make sure. I would have started it on May the 1st, but I'll make sure April the 2nd, June 2nd. I'll let you know how those 8 words worked out for me. I'll start those tonight. So yeah, that was great. I in one of my other uh restorative practices is dumping everything in a journal before I go to bed, because as an entrepreneur that has not all the way given up all of the hustle, that I go to bed sometimes with a lot of thoughts on my mind. And so now I dump them all into a journal. And then after I do that, I'll say those 8 words and close my eyes. So it's been really helpful for me to get all of those things out of my head. Sometimes I'll even have dreams about how we're going to support families better the next day, or what we could do different. I'm going to dump those on a piece of paper and then say those 8 words.
Well, that's great that you're even doing that, because see, what you're doing is the universe is created in your subconscious mind, because that's what the oneness is. So again, our souls are connected to oneness. That's why we can even look at a child and say that child is such an old soul. It's like that child's been here before. How many times do people say that? That's because it's true. That child has that soul is old. And what happens is you start teaching their brain to get in the way, and they stop listening to their soul, start listening to their brain, and that's what's not developed. That's what's lacking the wisdom. That's what needs to grow naturally. But the soul knows. And as you talk about now, having these thoughts before you dumping these thoughts, on the 180-day journey, this other part I left out I wanted to talk about as well, which you're also committing to, is controlling the first 30 minutes of your morning and the last 30 minutes of your night. So you intentionally are not going to let the universe, or I'm not talking about the universe, but the algorithm of social media or TV or your phone gives you the last thing to think about, such as watching a basketball game, watching a sitcom TV show, watching a news break, watching a reality show, watching a movie. Do not let that be the last 30 minutes of your night, because you want to make sure you implant in your subconscious mind positive things that are only going to be empowering to you, helpful to you, and helpful to others. That has to become your intentionality. And like I'm saying, when you start thinking this way for 180 days, you're going to be amazed at how it's going to broaden your horizon, your thoughts, start thinking about other things. And you're going to have a totally different way you see yourself that you start on day 40 than you did on day one. And then on day 90 than you did on day 40. And then on day 121, which, I had experienced recently, than I did at day 90. It's like, because the more I stay on this pattern, and you study even all the folks who we worship, which we should not, but we should look at and definitely reverence and learn from, the folks of the Jesus, Buddha, Allah, they all had periods of solitude where they went away from others and they allowed themselves to just really go into a deep introspective analysis of who they are and get connected to their soul energy and the oneness with the creator. And the longer you're in that space, the more you're able to raise your vibrational higher. And based on David Hawkins' map of consciousness, people like Jesus are vibrating at 1,000 compared to just 500. So that's what they spent years. I mean, you look in the Bible, Jesus disappears around 7 or 8 years old. You don't hear no more from him until he come back on the scene at age 33. You know what I'm saying? That's when they start talking about him again. So you got to look at, where did he go? What are those books about his life? Where is that information written? What happened in those 33 years, right? And so that's what I mean about being able to have that solitude, and the 188 journey is a period and a representation of at least 6 months of controlling your thoughts, being intentional with it, taking your thoughts away from trying to do sales and extraction, and just trusting the universe and surrendering and allowing faith to be what guides you.
And realizing how creative we really truly are when we are trusting the process.
Absolutely.
I realized that more and more, like everything, even looking back in hindsight and realizing how many of the things that you worried about all work themselves out. Like, I've gotten to a place in my life where I'm tired of worrying, and so becoming fully human was perfect timing for me, because I was sick of being worried, sick of being anxious. I was sick of all of those things. So it had to be a better way. And the universe would only align for it to be about, I attracted this opportunity. I'm clear that the people that I'm meeting now, the different opportunities that are presenting themselves, are all a direct reflection of what I'm doing inside.
Absolutely. And I see that in you. And I've seen that in you on this journey, you know, and witness real time, real growth in a person is incredible to see. And how many people are still growing at after age 45? I'm not talking about just a career. I'm talking about them as a person, and them as someone who you want to be connected to, and them attracting other people into their world. And you just realize, like, wow, you know that person too. And you connect to that person too. And they're just watching you with amazement. And then they'll realize that they too can change their vibrational energy if they were to put themselves on a 180 day journey of human emergence. But if those seeds are not planted, like you talked about before, the books you've read previously, but now you're living them, those were those seeds that are planted I talk about. And those seeds are there until the thunderstorm happens. And the thunderstorms help, just like in real life, it creates nitrogen and oxygen that penetrates the soil, and it nurtures those seeds in the soil, and the rebirth and the emergence of new trees, new plant life grows as a result from a thunderstorm. That's what also happens in your mind. Those seeds that have been buried there, that you've read throughout your life, and that thunderstorm now has now emerged. But the only challenge we are faced with, as I wrap my point up on this, is that we were blessed with the ability of choice. Unlike animals who have to operate off instinct, we have choice, and that's good and bad. But the bad part about us having choices, we're making choices without understanding that it's our choice to make. and we think that is how it should naturally happen. A lot of times we just make choices based off the way we were taught, not based on what's in our best, yes, our best higher self-interest for growth.
You're ending on a subject that's going to create our next topic for our next podcast. Because I know that my listening audience would have a few questions about certain scenarios. So I'm going to come up with some scenarios and I'll send it to you to review. And you know, you're speaking my language when you talk about planting seeds. As a gardener, it's really fun to watch and just you get to appreciate nature in a different way, and when you liken it to you as a person, it gives you much more patience in your process. I know that farmers could not go out and keep toiling their soil over and over again, or else the crops would never grow. They have to sit and wait and harvest them. And I share my garden with you all the time. I love that process. So I thank you, King, today for sharing this space with me. So for everyone listening, whether you're a parent or part of a village, what aligned with you today, even if it didn't look perfect? So that's my question to my audience, and I'm gonna let you close us out, King.
Well, I mean, that's a wonderful question to end with. And I just want to end with this statement now that every day should be a constant goal to be a better person the very next day than you were the previous day. And if you just focus on doing that and making that a daily commitment, that'll be the first path or the first step on the path to becoming fully human. So until next week, that's all work to come and learning how to be more fully human. Thank you for listening.